There is a lone bell tower standing in a green field in southeastern Luzon, in the Philippines. You have seen it, even if you don't know its name. It's on postcards, on pesos, on every list of the world's most beautiful ruins. The story that comes with it says everything else went under in a single morning, February 1st, 1814. A church full of people, 1,200 of them, sealed under lava, and only the tower left to mark the grave. Almost none of that is true. The lava, the number, even the tower itself, the story comes apart piece by piece. And the proof has been sitting in a photograph since 1934, where anyone could have looked. The volcano is Mayon, and in 1814 it had been quiet for 13 years, long enough for towns and stone churches to crowd its southern foot. Two of those towns matter here: Cagsawa, the one under the tower, and Budiao, its neighbor. Keep both names, because the legend only kept one. Through the night of January 31st, the ground would not stay still. By 6:30 the next morning, a light gray ash was sifting down on the southern slopes, fine as flour. An inconvenience. At 8 o'clock, the mountain detonated. The column climbed an estimated 7.5 miles, higher than airliners cruise, and shut out the sun over 2 entire provinces. Witnesses compared the darkness to the plague of Egypt. Ash came down on Manila, 200 miles away, Washington to New York. Then the column fell. An eruption column stands up for the same reason a hot air balloon does. It only floats while the heat holds. As it climbs, it cools, and it keeps loading itself with shattered rock until the lift fails. And when that happens, a standing tower of gas and stone doesn't drift away on the wind. It drops back onto the mountain and spreads outward along the ground, faster than anything standing on it can move. Between 8 and 10 that morning, Mayon's column did this at least twice. And the collapse wasn't random. The blasts had torn a notch 130 feet wide through the southern rim of the crater, and that notch worked like the spout on a pitcher, pointing everything that came down the slope at the towns. What arrived first was a thin, scalding cloud of gas and ash. It didn't crush buildings. Anyone it caught stopped breathing where they stood. Behind it came something heavier and slower, grinding downhill and glowing, and survivors gave that one a name: a river of fire. The mountain kept working into the early afternoon. By 1:30, it was over. 3 towns no longer existed, Cagsawa and Budiao among them. 2 more stood wrecked, and even the provincial capital was half in ruins. 5.5 hours had redrawn the map of a province, which is the first thing the postcard gets wrong. This was never the story of one picturesque village under a volcano. The colonial government suspended the region's tribute for 7 years, less mercy than bookkeeping, an admission that there was nothing left to tax. And an order relocating one of these towns had been signed 42 years earlier, in 1772. The paperwork was older than most of the people living under the mountain. One man watched it happen, and then spent months digging his parish out of the ash. Fray Aragoneses, a Franciscan priest. He matters here for one reason above all others. While the region rebuilt, he wrote down what actually occurred: where people ran, which buildings filled, and where the morning's real tragedy took place. His record survives, and it does not say what the postcard says. The church that filled with people that morning was Budiao, the neighbor. Roughly 200 people never came out of it. Together, inside the building they were certain was the safest place on the slope. Cagsawa's church held people too, perhaps another 200. And nothing in the record of that morning leaves room for lava reaching either building. The lava clears itself. Mayon's is thick, and it moves like roofing tar on a cold morning. A few hundred yards over many hours, slow enough for a grandmother to walk away from it. It does not cross a plain in the time it takes a congregation to run for a door. What tore through those towns at 8 in the morning was the collapsed column, the burning cloud, then the river of fire behind it. Heat and ash did the work. Molten rock never came near the doors. Which leaves the number, 1,200 people sealed beneath the tower. Open almost any old international account of Mayon, and the toll reads 12,000, 10 times higher. The priests of Albay kept registers, parish by parish, name by name. And across the entire devastated region, every town, every ruined parish, those registers add up to about 1,200 names. The same 1,200 the legend crams inside a single chapel. It was never the count for one building. It was the count for a province. So where did 12,000 come from? Almost certainly from 1,200. In Spanish, 1,200 is 1,200. 12,000 is 12,000. Somewhere between an archive in Albay and a printing press in Europe, one number became the other. And in 1873, a traveling German naturalist named Fedor Jagor printed the larger figure without checking it. The world has been copying Jagor ever since. Nobody has ever found the page where the mistake was first made. It is still out there, in some library, waiting. And here is what the bigger number would actually mean. 20 to 30,000 people lived in the whole affected region. 12,000 gone would be roughly every second person you knew, by lunchtime. The legend asks you to believe that many people were packed, wall to wall, into a rural stone chapel about the size of a large barn. Which leaves the tower, the easiest part to check, because the rest of the church stood around long enough to be photographed. In 1934, 120 years after the eruption, an American soil scientist named Robert Pendleton went out to Cagsawa with a camera. In his pictures, the facade is still standing, not a stump. The stone front of the church above ground, where the legend says 40 feet of rock had swallowed it in 1814. Whatever buried this town was still working on it deep into the 20th century. Here is what it was. The eruption had dumped 30 to 40 feet of loose ash and rock, a 3-story building's worth, across slopes stripped bare of every root that had held the ground together. Then the rains came back. Each hard storm turned that layer into slurry with the consistency of wet concrete, the flows Filipinos call lahars, and season after season, they eased a little more of Cagsawa under the surface. The town didn't drown in a morning. It went down over generations, one wet season at a time. And the lonely tower itself, the exact silhouette sold as the frozen instant of 1814, exists only because the surviving facade finally gave way in the 1950s, worn down by earthquakes and typhoons. The most famous photograph of this disaster is a picture of a structural failure from the age of television. The burning clouds finished their business in under 2 hours. The burial took another 140 years. And every visitor who photographs the tower is photographing the finish line of the slowest part, a monument to 140 years of rain. This is Geoclysm.